Hey, everybody, good afternoon and welcome to this Matinee Monday edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza here on the 12 Ounce Sports Network. Hope everybody had a great weekend and hope you're ready for another week where we hopefully can get a little bit closer to maybe getting a little bit of normalcy in our lives here with this coronavirus fight that we all have. Yours truly, Captain Lou, in the chair here this afternoon until 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Hope that maybe this is your late lunch hour and you can spend some of it with us here this afternoon. And if not your late lunch hour, then maybe, like I say, we'll have some fun this afternoon. Take some time out on your busy Monday afternoon. Hey, we got a fun show packed for you today. We're gonna get a special guest coming up at the bottom of the hour, a friend of the show. Jimmy Young's going to join us at 1:30. He's a radio personality up in Houghton, Michigan. He's been on from time to time here on the show. And we're going to continue kind of our, I guess what we would call a look back at the 60s, 70s, and maybe the 80s in professional sports. Last week we talked with Steve Finnemore about NBA play back in the day, and also we talked with Mark Van Vliet about some hockey back in the 70s, minor league, and a little bit of the NHL. So we'll talk to Jimmy and what else is on his sports mind, because we always have a lot of fun when he comes on the show, and we're excited to have Jimmy on the show with you. Hey, don't forget, coming up this week, tomorrow, I'll have on my show my Captain Lou 1.0 mock draft. I'll get in with the fun that everybody else seems to have with the draft coming up Thursday. The NFL with their turn in the spotlight. It's business as usual right now for them, as much as possibly can be, I guess, as they have their draft. It's going to be, I don't know, a virtual draft. It's going to be a little different than it's been in years past. You're not going to have the pomp and circumstance of having 40 to 100,000 people in the streets or whatever it might be. Originally scheduled for Las Vegas, but it's going to be just one of those things where it's going to be almost like a Zoom broadcast or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a draft without the sizzle, as I think they're calling it this year, but it's still going to be done. And we're going to have a little draft show as well. Logan Ward and myself are going to be on Thursday night for what I'm told at 7:45. We're going to have our draft show Thursday night. We're going to go right along with the draft, give our analysis on what we think of the picks that have taken place. And if there's something crazy going on, we'll be right there with it. So we hope that maybe you turn the volume down on some of the so-called experts on the four-letter networks and check us out for draft night coverage of our own here on the 12 Ounce Sports Network. I'll have all those details posted on my Facebook page, the Captain Lou Extravaganza, and also on Twitter. My handle is at the Real Captain Lou. So that's Thursday night. But Tuesday night, tomorrow night, I'm going to have my mock draft, and who knows, I may throw a surprise trade in there too. Who knows? But I'll give you my picks on what I think the draft's going to look like, and you can throw your darts at it. You can leave your comments on it, but it should be a lot of fun. So we invite you to stay tuned for that. Tomorrow at 8:30 Eastern Time, I'm going to have Harrison Watt. He's the play-by-play voice of the Ferris State Bulldogs out of the NCAA hockey. He's going to stop by and talk a little hockey and what's going on in his world, how he's adapting to this stay-at-home situation that we are all under for, at least here in Michigan, until the end of April. And who knows if it'll be extended, and we'll get his take on when he thinks maybe collegiate and professional sports might start back up. And then at 9 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, our own Philly Pete will join us, host of Pete's Power Plays, which you can hear on the network Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 12 o'clock. He'll stop by and join us for to go with what's on his mind. We'll get his picks and what he thinks is going to happen with the NFL draft coming up this Thursday night, round one anyways. So lots to talk about. And again, we'll have Jimmy Young, a friend of the show, on at the bottom of the hour here to have a little bit. We'll have some friendly banter back and forth. Always fun to talk to Jimmy on the show. Well, I'm sure a lot of you have watched the first two excerpts of The Last Dance on ESPN. That's been the talk of the sports world and the basketball world. We'll talk a little bit about that. I got a chance to see most of it. It's I think it's a very insightful look at Michael Jordan. They start out the premise with his final year and look back. They reminisce about his career back from when it started and through the bad boy era when he couldn't get through Detroit and finally was able to do that. I know those episodes that looks like are coming up this coming Sunday. What they're doing is it's a 10-part documentary, but they're taking their hour-long shows, and 1 and 2 were yesterday, and then 3 and 4 next Sunday, and so on. So it's a 5-week breakdown, if you will. And it looks like episodes 3 and 4 are going to deal with the bad boy era with Michael Jordan, what it took for him and his Bulls to get through Detroit. So I'm obviously going to be very attentive on those two shows, and hopefully it won't get my blood boiling too much after how bad of a light I'm sure they're going to paint Detroit back in the late 80s and early 90s. And I've got my feelings on that. I got a feeling next Monday and Tuesday my shows are going to be, they're going to be quite interesting. It's crazy because growing up, or I should say I was growing up, I should say when Michael Jordan started his NBA career, I was already 20 years old. So I can remember when he got drafted. I can remember when he played for North Carolina, and I thought he was the talent. But it was crazy when he got drafted by Chicago, Portland passing on him by taking Sam Bowie, and so did the Mavericks. Nobody knew he was going to be the talent that he became. He was a special talent, but I mean, did you really think when he got drafted that he was going to turn out to be arguably the best player or in the top 2 or 3, depending on who you're going to listen to? And I didn't think going in he was. Coming out of his career, these are one of those debates you can have until the cows come home. Who is better? LeBron, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Magic, Larry Bird. The list goes on and on. That's the beauty of talking sports, I guess. You can have your own opinion on who you think is the best player. And I didn't like Jordan at first, only obviously because he played for the Bulls against my Pistons. But once his career was over towards the end of it, I learned to respect it. I was the same way about Larry Bird. I thought he was an arrogant SOB and that, I didn't care for him, but that's because it seemed like he always had Detroit's number until Detroit solved the Celtics. And then they went on to overcome the Lakers and get the first of their 2 world championships. Now, obviously, they beat Portland in the second one, but then the Bulls finally learned how to overcome Detroit. And, here's the thing is I know I haven't watched it, obviously, but I know how they're going to paint Detroit as a dirty team, and they did all this dirty stuff. And, well, you got to understand something. Back in the day when Detroit and Chicago and Boston and L.A. and Philadelphia, Houston, they were the teams in the 80s. And then Chicago, of course, and Portland and those teams. It was a different mentality back then. And I'm not telling you something you don't already know. When you went into the lane for a layup, it's like Steve Finnemore talked about last week on the show. You went into the lane. You weren't getting a free pass. You weren't getting the free pass that these guys get today. You went in, you got your head torn off. But it was expected. Detroit got in Chicago's head. That's They got in Chicago's head, and it took a while, for Chicago to overcome that. And it's like, in the preview for the show that's coming up this week, they had to get tougher. They got stronger, and Jordan overcame that, and he had to will Scottie Pippen to get over it. And, so they're going to put Detroit in a bad light. I just know they're going to. And that's fine. But going back to my feelings towards Michael Jordan, he was probably an SOB to deal with. You could see bits of it when in the first two broadcasts, in the second hour, when Pippen was doing his Pippen thing and he decided to sit out. Well, he decided to wait to have his surgery until the season started. So Jordan, the ultimate competitor, he had to be that way with his teammates. And it proved to be successful. They didn't love him, but that's not what he was paid for. That's not what he was paid to do. That was just his DNA. I saw a really funny quote on Twitter this morning. I don't know who brought it up, but I can't take credit for it. But if you watch that documentary, and one guy brought up the reason that Michael Jordan became so good at it was because he couldn't use tools, and his dad told him he didn't know the difference between a screwdriver and pliers, and he made him go back in with his mom because his older brother was more adept with that type of thing. And Jordan hated that. And I think some of that might have drove him. But I watch this now, and it's going to test my personal feelings towards Michael Jordan because, like I said, I know they're going to rip on Detroit. And they're going to paint Detroit as this bunch of thugs. And a lot of people thought that. The Boston Celtic fans thought it. But you can't take away from the talent of Detroit. And I guess my personal dislike of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen goes back to the Dream Team more than anything. Now, I want to kind of shift my little monologue here with talking about to Scottie Pippen. Now, I watched how they tried, how they painted him. And I never liked Scottie Pippen. I didn't like him. And I didn't like him because, first of all, I never thought he should have been on the Dream Team before Isaiah Thomas. Now, Scottie Pippen turned out to be a great ball player. Was he one of the top 50 of all time? I could argue that he wasn't. He was very good. I mean, he had a great talent. I think Chicago did their due diligence with getting him. Michael Jordan needed him as a piece to go win those 6 championships. But you talk about the killer instinct. I don't think Scottie Pippen had it until later on. And it was, proof positive in the first couple of series that Chicago had with Detroit in 88 and 89 and even 90. Pippen, I don't know. I think it was more about Pippen than it was about the team and about winning. And I believe that. And I honestly believe that, Scottie Pippen at that time was not one of the 12 to 15 best players in the league. And if you want to sit there and tell me that he was better than Isaiah Thomas and he deserved to be on that Dream Team, I'll debate it with you till the cows come home. And it all goes back to that All-Star game where Isaiah froze out Michael Jordan. I think it was like 86 or whatever. When they're on the same team, he wouldn't pass him the ball. And Michael Jordan held that grudge. Well, the timing of it, too, was 91 after the Bulls finally solved the Pistons, and they went on to win the World Championship over the Lakers. And it came time to pick the Dream Team. And we all know that Michael Jordan, he was the catalyst behind that. And this is, again, and I honestly, this is where I lost a little respect with Magic Johnson. He could have went to bat for Isaiah to be on that team instead of Pippen, but he didn't because he was afraid of Jordan. And so that's where a little bit of dislike I had for Michael Jordan. And for Scottie Pippen to be on that team to me was a travesty. And then they go into the show and they start to paint him, try to paint maybe Scottie a little bit as a victim with being underpaid. Who twisted his arm to sign that 7-year contract? Oh, yeah, Jerry Krause and Jerry Reinsdorf, they were painted as the villain. And in a lot of regards, I think they were. But if you think I feel sorry for Scottie Pippen signing a 7-year contract, yeah, he wanted to renegotiate it. The Bulls weren't going to do it. They didn't negotiate with anybody. He wasn't the only person that they didn't do that to. And for him to sit there, and so he made it about him, but that's Scottie Pippen. And yeah, he's a great talent, but I don't think that he was. I don't think he's one of the top 50 of all time. No way. He was a catalyst on that team, but he was always second on that team. And I don't think that he should have been on the 92 Dream Team. No, it didn't matter who you, for the most part, you could have had any of the NBA guys, the top 25 NBA guys on that team, and they would have won those Olympics in 92. I get that. As long as you had Magic and you had Michael and Charles and, but for Scottie Pippen to be on that team, I think was a travesty. And, it's coming to light how he was towards the end of that contract. And Phil Jackson, I thought, took the high road in defending him when he got his surgery in September or whatever, at the beginning of the season. But I'm with Michael Jordan on that one. He could have very easily got that surgery done on his ankle or whatever in June or July. He would have been ready for training camp. And, a lot of this wouldn't have happened. I just think there's a difference between him and Michael Jordan as far as a killer instinct. Michael Jordan had it. And Scottie was great. Don't get me wrong. He's a very good ball player. And I think he proved it later on. But at the time of going for the Dream Team in 92, Scottie Pippen was not, in my opinion, deserved to be on that Dream Team. I mean, I'll give Michael Jordan credit for getting him on there, but that soured me with Michael Jordan for a long time, sour grapes. And so, and I was soured with the fact that that Magic Johnson really didn't come help to the aid of Isaiah Thomas. But it's all going to come to light next weekend, as is probably the story about how the Pistons wouldn't shake the Bulls' hands and everybody think they're whiners and dirty. Well, I'm going to say this again, and I'll say it next week. It's funny how when Larry Bird never shook anybody's hands from the Pistons, when they finally came over the threshold and beat the Celtics to go on to face the Lakers, you didn't see Larry Bird out there shaking anybody's hand, and he wasn't vilified like Detroit was. It was okay for him to do it, but it wasn't okay for the Pistons. I believe that's hypocritical. And that's the media. Because Detroit was painted out as the bad guy, and Michael Jordan was the man. Lambeer and Isaiah wouldn't do it. Dumars did it. Sally did. And I think that's part of the other reason why Isaiah got frozen out of the Dream Team. And to me, that's a shame. So, but going back to, do I like Michael Jordan? I like him more now than I did 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I mean, I respect his game. I think, and then you're going to get that argument where, I debated with a couple of guys here from our network about, is he better than LeBron? And to me, I don't know how you can compare. There's so many variables with it. And we've talked about this. Everybody talks about it. What would LeBron have done in the 80s? He would have got, he would have got battered around. Would he have been able to handle it? Probably. Do I think he's a little more versatile than Michael? Maybe. But Michael Jordan never deferred the last second shot like LeBron has throughout his career. So I think that, that's advantage Michael Jordan. No, yeah, LeBron's going to probably surpass Michael for scoring. I get that. And he's probably going to play 22 years, which Michael didn't. I get that. I don't know if LeBron is quite the level of defense of Michael Jordan, but versatility, I got to give that to LeBron. So I think they're both great. They're both in the top 5, in my opinion, of all-time great players. Top 4, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I look at the stats of somebody like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Look in the 70s, how many league MVPs he got. He got 6 just in one decade. And you look at championships. Michael Jordan, 6-0. LeBron's not going to do that. And, I mean, LeBron may get another ring with the Lakers. That's a good possibility. But I just think in crunch time, I think Michael Jordan just showed up better. That's just my opinion. It makes for great fodder. And, you know, it's good banter back and forth for guys like us that, you know, we like to talk about that stuff. But I'm interested to watch the 10 days or the 10-hour shows or whatever you want to call it, the 5 days worth. And it's going to paint a picture of Michael Jordan that a lot of us have never seen. And I remember listening to the quotes from him last week that said he was afraid people were going to like him less. I'm not going to like him any less. I respect his game. And you know, he was a winner. And he was a win-at-all-cost guy. And I just respect his ability. And he just, you know, and the truth hurts. So it's going to be fun to watch next weekend for us as Pistons fans, especially when they document that. They talk to the Piston players, John Sally, Isaiah Dumars. I mean, it's going to be fun. And you know, and as Michael said, he carries that hatred to them to this day, and that's great. Why not? And I don't expect anything less from him on that. So it really, that to me is one of the things that makes him great. So, well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the NFL draft coming up. And then again, we're going to have Jimmy Young coming up at the bottom of the hour. Thanks for joining us here live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network here on the Captain Lou Extravaganza.
Esports are here to stay. Go to jazzsports.ag, log into your account, and look for our new esports section on the top of your screen. Browse through all the different available matches and watch them live with our exclusive esports betting platform. Get instant access to game results, pending and graded bet reports, outright bet types, and upcoming match schedules, all at the easy reach of your fingertips. Jazz Sports puts you in the game.
Drinkade, ready for distribution worldwide.
Nothing makes us happier at Lexington Law than when our clients cancel our services. Listen to this client call and see what we mean.
Lexington Law Firm, this is Erin.
I would like to cancel my account.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, don't be. Actually, you guys have done tremendous work for me, and I was working with you for several years now. And my goal was to get a mortgage written by the end of this year, and I just got that mortgage commitment.
That is wonderful.
My credit went from like 440 working with you guys to 700.
Nice.
And I got a very good 4.25% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. I have nothing at all bad to say. If you ever want me to write a testimonial, well, I will. As a matter of fact, I've recommended you to a lot of friends.
Lexington Law has served over 500,000 clients, taking expert action on their credit that has led to the removal of millions of questionable negative items from their credit reports. Call now and learn more about how Lexington Law may be able to help you in the removal of negative items from your credit report, such as collections, late payments, charge-offs, and many others. Call Lexington Law today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Captain Lou Extravaganza live here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network. Yours truly, Captain Lou, in the chair till 2 o'clock this afternoon on this matinee Monday. Hope everybody had a great weekend. And again, we're all going to get through this together here with this pandemic. We're not going to let it get the best of us. Just please just do us a favor and just adhere to the social distancing and be smart out there. Get outside in the sunshine, go for those walks, get in your backyard, sit out on the front deck or the front porch with a cup of coffee in the morning. Just do some of that, and please just adhere to the social distancing, and we'll get through this together. I guarantee it. But the thing is that the key word is together. Let's try to keep that in the forefront here. We talked a little bit about, again, the NFL draft coming up Thursday night, and this is draft week. Right now, this is it for us as far as sports goes, with anything as far as on the NFL side. And it's the silly season, obviously, and after the draft, it's going to be pretty void for anything really in the NFL. You'll get little bits of information here and there on what's going on, and after that, they're going to announce the schedule on May 9th, and that's something we love to dissect here on the show. We'll look through it and give you who we think's got the best schedule, who's got the easiest, the worst, this and that. But then really it's going to come down to the next news will be, are we going to have a season? Are we going to play and have them play in front of no fans? How's it going to work on the high school and the college levels? So many variables out there still left. But sticking with the draft, you look at the top few picks, obviously. We've talked about this. We've got Cincinnati with the top pick of the draft. I mean, it's pretty much a given that Joe Burrow is going to be the number one pick, the quarterback out of LSU. He's got the potential. Is he going to be a generational quarterback? It's so early to tell on that. I was listening to a show this weekend on Sirius XM, and they brought up a great point, and I wish I could remember the guy's name. Dave was his first name. He was on Sirius XM, the Mad Dog Sports Radio show over the weekend, and they went through the quarterbacks, all first-round quarterbacks that were picked from 2000 until last year, and only 40% of them were not considered bust. Now, what I consider a quarterback that's not a bust has been with your franchise for at least 6 or 7 years, maybe longer, and you didn't even have to go to a Super Bowl. They got them to the playoffs. They've been consistent. They put up good numbers, gotten good contracts. And for example, I'll give you 2002. I wish I could remember all three of the quarterbacks. They were all bust. Joey Harrington from the Lions was one. I remember that. But you go through just the quarterbacks, first round success rate, and 60% of them are bust. It's incredible. It's a crapshoot. And I guess that's what brings me to this year's crop of quarterbacks. You've got, in my opinion, 5 really good quarterbacks in this draft. 3 that have already gotten the mentioned in the forefront. You've got Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert, who all 3 of those could go top 6. Although a quarterback that's starting to get a little bit of traction is Jordan Love out of Utah. Then you've got a quarterback that I think, as crazy as it sounds, is flying under the radar, and that is Jalen Hurts out of Oklahoma. I just think he's going to have a great career. Is it going to be Hall of Fame? No. But I think he's going to be a steal in this upcoming draft. He probably won't be drafted until the second or possibly the third day, although the second day I think is going to be his positioning. He's going to be in the second or third round. Somebody's going to get him at a real cheap price, and I think they're going to really enjoy the results of it. Now, I've been thinking about this for a long time. You've got, and I know the draft isn't just about the quarterback, especially if you're the Lions. They got so many needs they need, but we'll go through that for sure as we'll see if we can well, I thought our guest was calling. Let's see if Jimmy's on the line right now. Okay, well, his phone looks like he had a little bit of let's try it again now. This is the magic of live radio.
Hello?
Is this Jimmy?
Oh, what's happening?
Not much, man. We're live. Sorry about that. I guess we had a little a little hiccup with my phone on our end. How's everything up in Great White North?
Well, Lou, let's just say we're living a dream that is very uneventful right now.
Boy, oh boy, unfortunately, that's the way it's going everywhere, you know. The reason I wanted to have you on today, Jim, we'll start with the little banter back and forth. Last week we've been talking about the games back in the 70s and all the sports, it's how the game was played and different venues and whatnot. I want to put you on the spot. What was the first professional game that you ever went to?
Well, you know what? Years ago, this was probably in the early 70s. Now, my family history, I'm from a broken family, and I somehow ended up in Texas with my father. And let's just say I was there for about a 2-year span. It didn't work out that well, sort of say. But anyway, I had a chance to go to the Houston Astrodome and watch my favorite team at the time, the New York Mets and the Astros.
Okay.
And actually, and then obviously, you know, like I say, that was a spot in my life that, you know, some people go through it, and as they say, we moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple years after that, Lou, I was at the old Comiskey Park, where I seen a record at the time, and I don't know if this record has yet to been broken. Wilbur Wood, the old knuckleball pitcher, at the old Comiskey Park. It was a unconventional doubleheader where it was a continued game from a previous game that he started that game. It was a few weeks past, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it was his turn in the rotation again. So basically, knuckleball pitcher, he came out and finished a game that he started 2 weeks ago or so. Then he also was scheduled to be the starter for the regular game. So basically, Wilbur Wood won 2 games in one day.
Wow. How cool
And that was
is that?
that was at the old Comiskey Park.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was my first 2 memorable experiences. And obviously, I was in Tiger Stadium one time with. And again, I kind of fell out of favor with the Mets, and I've been a Red Sox fan, Lou, since the early 70s.
Okay.
And I happened to be when they had scheduled doubleheaders at Tiger Stadium. Boston was there, and me and some of our buddies. Let's just say we took a 3-day road trip, Lou. How's that?
That'll work.
So, and here we're going, and of all the sporting events I've been to, Lou, and again, I don't even know how many. It's been hundreds. I never saved any programs, but for some reason I was going through some things about a year ago, and there's that program from that game upstairs.
Wow.
50 cents. And the scheduled starting pitchers in that doubleheader were 4 unknowns at the time, very few heard of. Jack Morris, Dan Petrie, Roger Clemens, and Oil Can Boyd.
Oh, wow.
Little did we know at the time, hey, Lou. I mean, it's just funny how things go.
It sure is, man. So that's quite the who's who of starting pitchers, I'll tell you what.
And actually, Tom Seaver was on a Red Sox roster at the time. That was the back end of his career. And I don't know, Lou. If I had to guess, I don't think he even spent a full year in Boston, if I remember correctly.
Probably not. Boy, he was one of my favorites in the 70s. God, he could pitch.
Well, he's still one of my all-time favorites. And you think of those Mets teams, the Miracle Mets with that pitching rotation, Kuzer, Metlack, and Seaver. And back then, in those days, with the Baltimore Orioles, most of those pitching staffs, Lou, like a lot of our younger generation has no idea.
No.
They had 3 starters. That was it. Maybe 4 for the most part. But you go to the early 70s, the Orioles to this day, I think, are the only pitching staff to have 4 20-game winners in one season. And we'll never see that again.
Oh heavens, no! The way they have the rotations, and they sometimes go to a six-man rotation in the summertime. You're absolutely right. Well, you'll like this, Jimmy. My first baseball game, an old Met pitched for the Tigers.
Who's that, Lou?
August 1st, 1974. Woody Fryman pitched a one-hitter against the Brewers at County Stadium. and Aurelio Rodriguez got a 2-run homer. They won 2-0, and he gave up a base hit in the bottom of the 8th inning. I think it was 1 out, and the game took 1 hour and 47 minutes.
Perfect.
We walked up to the stadium, and we were, I think, like 6 or 7 rows behind third base, and it was just, I'll never forget that. It was such a fun night for me as a youngster, and I was hooked ever since.
Well, nothing beats going to a ball game. To this day, one of my people I work with at the station, one of the bosses, our little mom and pop station has season tickets because one of our ownership is from Wisconsin, and we got season tickets for the Brewer games. I go to Milwaukee 2-3 times a year. Something about going to a ball game, Lou. I don't know. In the middle of summer, it's just something about it. It's just, to me, it's almost therapeutic. It really is.
What do you think? I've had one chance to go to a ball game at Miller Park. I loved it. I had a chance to go about 5 years ago, I think it was. I can't even remember who the Brewers were playing. I think they were playing Houston, and they won. And I like the layout of the ballpark.
Well, you know what, Lou? It's beautiful. I mean, it's easy to get to right off the highway. Mm-hmm. When we leave here in the Copper Country, for those out there who know roughly where we're at, we just go right in behind Milwaukee, and we go in out of Green Bay. We just go in right to Appleton, and we stay. We actually stay at a little place on. It's called the Best Western Woodlands. It's about a 10-minute walk to the ballpark.
Oh, wow.
You walk through the parking lot of the VA hospital. There's a nice little nature trail, and on that 3-block area, there's all kinds of neat little sports bars. One of the bars is where Harvey Wallbanger, Harvey Kane.
Oh yeah, wow.
The old Brewer manager. His bar was right there, but it's just an absolute blast. We love going there for the simple fact, 5-hour ride, and it's so easy to get, easy in, easy out, and it's.
Oh, I got it. Oh.
You got me, Lou?
I got you now.
Yeah, but anyway, about 10 or so years ago, Lou, it was the same time. It's in Miller Park. Mm-hmm. And in the right field bleachers, they have a bar restaurant called Fridays, okay? Mm-hmm. And you could go in there, if you're lucky enough, you would get a table where you could hang your feet right over the wall. And there's up. So anyway, and they got a bunch of TVs in there, okay? Mm-hmm. So I go in there, and we were there a couple days, and actually Detroit was in town. The same time in the Stanley Cup playoffs when Carolina won the Stanley Cup. Now, most people know me. I'll watch a hockey game at 3 a.m. on my deathbed.
Amen.
So I'm sitting there just manipulating. Okay, I got a table. My feet are hanging right over the fence, up top. And this is just, this is heaven, Lou. It really is.
Oh yeah.
And this TV is right about 10 feet away from me, and every TV in there has what on? The baseball game.
Sure.
And I'm just conniving. Finally, this waitress came by a couple of times. I said, look, what would it take? The Stanley Cup playoffs are on. Now, this guy happened to be from Michigan, young gentleman. He loves hockey. Mm-hmm. He said, let me see what I can do. So I kind of very calmly took a $5 bill out of my pocket. Well, 5 minutes later, though, I had the actual remote control in my hand. I was watching Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals with my feet hanging over the right field fence at Miller Park.
Oh, my God.
Now you tell me, Lou, if that's not living it right.
That's nirvana. That's heaven. You can call it whatever you want. You were living large that night, Jimmy.
Oh, man. And people are looking at me like I was homeless or felt sorry for me or something.
Oh, my God. That's awesome. That is so great. I wanted, I was talking to my dad last night. We were talking about when they used to go to the Packer Lion games back in the 70s, and they used to charter buses from Munising, and they used to stay right with the players. Boy, wouldn't that be something if we could still do that today?
Oh, that would be something, and I know in Green Bay it has become so big with football. A lot of the visiting teams stay in that older motel in Appleton. It's an old that's where the Bears stay, but Yeah, if you can do that this day and age, you're really fortunate because with all the security nowadays, and especially football players, Lou, they like to stay out of the way. If you can get close to them, you're very fortunate.
Well, the story he told us, and I've heard this story from him a lot of times, was 74 or 75. They went down, and Herb Orvis, lineman for the Lions, had a broken arm. So he couldn't play. So they were tossing a few ginger ales together, and
why not?
He invited him back up into the suite, and I wish I could remember the name of the motel they were staying at in Green Bay, but there was my dad, a couple other fellas from Munising, and Herb Orvis and Russ Thomas, all talking about who Detroit should draft in the next draft. And you hear those stories, and my goodness, it really brings you back to yesteryear when they were, the players were so much more accessible. And I get it why they're not now, but it makes you yearn for those kind of days.
Well, there was a point in Green Bay years ago, and I would go to Packer games quite often. Obviously, I know enough people up here.
Mm-hmm.
The last one I went to was when they played New England, not 2 years ago, but about 5 years ago they played them.
Okay.
And that game lived up to all its billing. But I'm going back probably to the early 80s. I would go down 3-4 times a year just for something to do.
Sure.
And I'm a Redskin fan, but I still love sports. To me, I don't care who's playing. That's a lot of people keep saying, "What are you going to Milwaukee for when the Red Sox aren't there?" You think I care who I see? It's a pro game.
Yeah.
It's the event. But anyway, we're hanging out at we stayed right at the Bay Motel on Military, and then a bunch of us, this was, let's just say, Lou, this was in the old barnstorming days, okay?
Sure.
So a bunch of us, let's go down to the casino. I don't like gambling, I'll play just penny machines, whatever, which didn't even exist then. But I just up for an adventure, and the casino is down by the airport. We didn't meet any players, but here all of us are sitting in the lounge next to Pat Summerall and John Madden.
Oh, wow.
You talk about the funnest conversation you ever had in your life. And you think these guys cared about anything at this particular point? I mean, just talking about memories and sports, and they just got done with their pregame production meeting. But John and those guys, Lou, trust me, as fun as they were to listen to, they were that much enjoyable to talk to. And it was hours. It seemed like 2 hours.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't want to leave, and finally we left. And they, to this day, I still got his card up, his card up in my wallet upstairs.
Wow. See, those
It
are
was sitting there like we knew each other for years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, heck yeah. God almighty. Those are the kind of stories you could talk about for hours, and that's kind of what we wanted to do here with this. I can remember back, my famous story was with Ray Nitschke. One back when we were in high school, we were on our spring break trip down to Green Bay, and he worked for Claremont, I think it was at the time. And my uncle and my dad knew him from working at the paper mill there in Munising, and so he happened to be there. And the smart aleck that I was a senior in high school. I had this shirt on that said, "I hate the Green Bay Packers" on it. And my uncle says, "Hey, I got someone for you to meet," and his back was turned. So he turned around and he looked at me with that god-awful stare. Jimmy, I'll tell you, I almost crapped myself right there. So I ran down the hall. They were in like this banquet room. So I went, changed my shirt, come back, and Ray was probably one of the nicest guys. He was bent over laughing so hard, I thought he was, but he shook my hand, and I looked at it, and I thought, holy crap, was that big. And he was, what a nice guy he was.
Yep, and you're almost in shock. I mean, at one point you're scared to talk to him, but once you start talking, 9 out of 10 of those guys are so cordial, and they actually enjoy just talking, just having general conversations. They probably don't get to do that often.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Go ahead.
There's one story, Lou, 91, and I'll kind of switch gears a little bit.
Oh, that's all right.
Hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen 10 Frozen Fours.
Wow.
This was in Minneapolis, 1991, when Northern Michigan won the NCAAs.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my friends are down there, and we stayed. We're out of team stay. It was and this one they played at the old Civic Center where they had the transparent boards. So anyway, Northern Michigan under Rick Conley was on a roll that season. Boston University only lost 2 games going into the tournament. Michigan and Maine, I believe, were the other 2 teams, but don't quote me on that.
I think you're
So
right.
anyway, in Maine, that's when they had Paul Correa and that juggernaut team back then. So anyway, we're watching, and it turned out that Northern Michigan and Maine were in the championship game, and nobody gave Northern a snowball's chance, and you know what? But at the back end of the season, they were one of the hottest teams in hockey. But anyway, make a long story short, we stayed in the motel right where within walking distance, and over the years, I met Herb Brooks up here, the legendary hockey coach.
Sure.
Okay, from their great wars with Coach John McGinnis in Michigan Tech. Just over the years, I met him. I didn't know him that well, but we knew each other to have a general conversation. He's at this Frozen Four. I go to the elevator, go up to my room, which was the day of the championship game. Who's in the elevator with me? Herb Brooks.
Wow.
We have a conversation. We go down to the lounge downstairs, and this was called, they had a makeshift lounge at one of the motels. It was called the Hattrick Lounge. And when we're done, Lou, I'll text you this picture. I'm sitting there talking with him. The Lake Superior coach, Coach Jackson,
Okay, yeah.
was there, and also having a conversation with Mike Eruzione,
Oh, wow.
who was the assistant coach of Boston University, who was also there. And I had these guys sign this little menu for me, and I'm looking at it right now, Lou. I got this on the wall, and I've been told this is worth a few bucks. Jim, best wishes, #1 college hockey fan, Herb Brooks, USA Gold.
Wow.
Right below his autograph, Mike Eruzione, the captain of the '80 Olympic team. And this is just signed on an old bar menu called the Hattrick Lounge. It's just a piece of paper like you see at a high school program, you know. Man. And I've got a bunch of players who signed this thing and a couple of guys from Maine. It's pretty special. And someone said, why don't you sell it? What do I want to sell it for?
Yeah.
I mean, certain things like that are memories.
100%.
But if this coronavirus continues, I might have to start selling a lot of things.
Boy, unfortunately, you're true on that regard. Hey, Jimmy, let's kind of transition into that. You're big into the high school sports scene and whatnot. I know, unfortunately, when all this broke down, you were getting ready to call some state finals action for high school hockey. I mean, what do you think, man? Do you think we're gonna have a football season in the fall, or at any level?
Lou, I'm optimistic. My first and foremost concern is to save our businesses.
Right.
I've worked with a lot of businesses, from corporate agencies to the mom and pop grocery store 3 miles from where I'm sitting. I hope to God we do.
Yeah.
I only thing that kind of bothers me is we don't hear anything good about this.
None.
There are good things out there, and I know they don't want to report them because I think it might give people liberties. Eventually, Lou, I think all of us are going to have to move on. There's going to have to be risk taken, I think, at the end of the day, because I think everyone realistically knows this isn't going to go away in our lifetime, I don't think.
Probably not.
But eventually, I mean, life has to go on. As far as sports, Lou, at the high school level, I talked to some athletic directors. Funny, we're having this conversation. I was just talking with a few last week. If high school isn't in session, you're not going to have high school football. And I think to be looking that far ahead is a little bit premature.
Right.
Because as quick as this thing put everybody on their knees, it could turn the other way, which nobody wants to talk about. I hope there is, for the kids' sake, for the athletes' sake. And again, we're still 3 months away from that.
Right.
But if you hear some things, it's just nothing but doom and gloom for 9 months. I'm trying to stay as positive I can about that, but I guess, Lou, like everyone else, I have no idea. I hope so, but I mean, we can only pray we get back to some sort of normalcy.
It's funny is you're exactly right, Jimmy. You could talk about everybody's got a prognostication from 2 years from now to, we're going to do it. It's just nobody really knows. And, I don't know. I mean, I look at from a college standpoint, these big colleges are going to do everything they can to play the games because they're going to hemorrhage so much money if they don't. You got to know that's got to have something to do with their decision.
Well, the college, Lou, I watched, some programs last week. As far as the big boys, the major, your Alabamas, your Michigans of the world, if this season does not take place, or even play in front of empty crowds, empty stadiums, you're talking a $4 billion industry.
Wow.
I mean, that's what they're talking about. And again, the Notre Dame athletic director, he's adamant. We're not going to play in front of an empty stadium. Pac-12 says they won't play at all. I love what Coach Day said at Ohio State. Hey, any football is better than no football. He said play a reduced schedule. I mean, they would play in an empty stadium if they had to. So, it seems to be split what some of these conferences are going to do. At this point, Lou, I would be happy to see a 2-inning softball game, to be honest with you.
Boy.
And at the end of the day, these sporting events, as we know them for the foreseeable future, they're going to be different, especially if basketball and hockey come back. It's going to be reduced playoffs, and I'll guarantee if those two sports comes back, there are going to be no people at them. Baseball, hopefully July, something going. They keep talking about going to Arizona, going to Florida. They have all these plans in play. I think we'll have a good barometer come May 1st, especially with basketball and hockey, what they're going to do. They have plans in place. There are ways to do it, but there's going to have to be sacrifices and concessions made with the players, and not only that, but as we all know, the players' union has an awful lot of weight in these decisions.
100%, Jimmy. I totally agree. Well, hey, I appreciate you taking time out to talk to us. It's always fun talking, and we got to get in I told my wife, I said, we got to get in the training somehow to get ready to come up and take you on for that little mini golf series.
Well, me and my wife were talking the other day, and she just did the flyby, and she said hi. But anyway, yeah, we were talking about our mini golf season. It's going to be reduced. I mean, obviously, I'll tell you what, if you do, let us know. We love that Eagle River, Minocqua, Woodruff area.
Okay.
We could do 3 months of mini golf there in about 2.5 days, and we would have one hell of a time, trust me.
Oh, God, it would be a lot of fun. I'll keep you in the loop. We're definitely going to put that on our radar. It may not be till later on in the summer, but we're open for it, man.
Yeah, but Lou, seriously now, in Munising, that Timber Falls mini golf right on top of the hill.
Yeah.
That, seriously, and I've got to know the owner there who's a Michigan Tech alumnus. And for those tuned in downstate and wherever else we're streaming here today, that golf course in Munising, seriously, is one of the better upkept courses, and that is, I would say, the best course we played on in the Midwest. That is a absolute diamond in the rough. And it's very challenging. I mean, if you enjoy a challenge, from all the courses we've been on, Lou, from Wisconsin Dells to Minocqua to Woodruff to everywhere else in between, Traverse City, that one there, and you wouldn't think it because it's just there by itself. That is so well kept. The people are so cordial, and a challenging course, Lou. It's very challenging.
Well, Jimmy, we'll keep in touch, and once all this breaks, and I'm with you, I'm optimistic it's going to. I think we're going to have some type of a sporting season. It may be a little shorter this year, but I think we'll get there. So, Jimmy, thanks for coming on. I'll keep in touch, and we'll talk to you soon.
And keep living the dream, Lou, would you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. You know it. All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, my friend.
You
Good
bet.
talking to you, Lou.
You too. Thanks, Jimmy.
Bye-bye.
Jimmy Young, he's kind of our Upper Peninsula insider. Just for great stories, banter back and forth. He's, for those of us here in Michigan, he's got a pretty good pulse of what's going on. And, again, a different perspective. With his take on the high school sports here in Michigan, if they don't open the enrollment up, then we may not see football. I hope that's not the case. But, again, as we've talked about, I don't know for how long. It's like he said, we're all just guessing. We're all kind of waiting on what's going to take place. And with the government and, with the pandemic. But, he's a very interesting perspective on that is sooner or later, we're going to have to, I hate to use the term take a chance, but we're going to have to find out just, how far we can go with it. And I honestly think that once May 1st hits, at least here in Michigan, you might see the stay-at-home order extended, but I think you'll start to see a gradual opening of some of the businesses, and it's not going to happen overnight. But as far as the sporting events go, I'm still holding out hope for Stanley Cup and for the NBA playoffs. And starting back up in June, is like Jimmy said, there are indeed plans in place. It's just a matter of, are we going to get to them? And this is almost like the debate with Michael and LeBron, who's the better of the two. Depending on who you talk to, everybody's got their opinion on when they should start, if they should start. You know, should it be next year? Should it be in 18 months? And it all goes back to, this is all such new territory for all of us as far as what goes on when we're going to get back in the swing of things with athletics and with sports at all levels. But it was great talking to Jimmy. Great stories about going to the sporting events in the 70s and 80s and even now in the 90s. What a great story about getting to meet Herb Brooks and Mike Eruzione. Wow, those are the things that I love. I could talk to people for hours on end about that. So, again, thanks to Jimmy Young for joining us. Hey, we got a great week of shows coming up. Again, tomorrow, coming up on our normal time, 8 until 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have Harrison Watt, the play-by-play voice of the Ferris State Bulldogs NCAA D1 team. He's going to join us at 8:30. And at 9 o'clock tomorrow night, we're going to be joined by Philly Pete. He is the host of Pete's Power Plays here on the network. We're going to talk to Pete about the draft coming up on Thursday. We'll kind of banter back and forth a little bit, make some predictions on what we think is going to happen in the draft. And I'll give you my Captain Lou 1.0 mock draft tomorrow night. We'll go through that, and you can sling your arrows at that all you want. And I just got some correspondence, and it looks like we're going to possibly get the play-by-play voice of the West Michigan Whitecaps, Dan Hasty, the Detroit Tigers single A affiliate. We'll see if we can't nail him down for either Wednesday or Friday this week, one of our matinee shows. So looking forward to talk to Dan some stories about the Tigers and what they've got up and coming, and being a play-by-play voice at the minor league level. So it'll be great to hook up with Dan Hasty. So excited to maybe touch base with him here, and we'll get something lined up with him. I look at the clock. My goodness, it's that time again. This hour flies by. We got a lot to do tonight. Hey, a special invitation for those tonight. Check me out on my Facebook page, the Captain Lou Extravaganza Facebook page. I do high school play-by-play for Freeland, Michigan, the Freeland Falcons. We're going to have their head coach Kevin Townsend join us, and we're going to do some highlights with him, just go over the year, and a special tribute to the seniors and to the football team. Kind of a little thank you to that community for how long they've been working with us and giving me the access and doing the play-by-play for their high school team. But join us at 7 o'clock on Facebook Live on the Captain Lou Extravaganza. I think you'll enjoy it. We're going to have a little recap of the 2019 season. I've got some audio highlights we'll play and some banner back and forth. Kevin Townsend, so gracious, I should say, with his time and access. He's going to hop on with us, and then they're going to have a little tribute to the seniors at their football stadium with turning the lights on at 2020 military time, which is 8:20 Eastern time. So join us for that. Hey, thanks to Jimmy Young for taking time out of his busy schedule to join us here this afternoon on the show. It's been an absolute treat. I got to get my mini golf. I got to get into training camp on that to take them on. I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun with that. So hey, we got a lot to look forward to this week. Our draft show Thursday night, 7:45 here on the network. Once we get everything nailed down, who's going to be on, I'll pass it along on my Facebook page and also on Twitter at The Real Captain Lou. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, here this afternoon on our Matinee Monday. We'll see you tomorrow night, normal time, 8 o'clock Eastern time, here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So just remember, keep your heads up, keep your sticks down, keep your feet moving, and as always, keep your minds open. We'll join you tomorrow night here on the 12-Ounce Sports Network for another edition of the Captain Lou Extravaganza. So long, everybody.